Welcome to No More Desire, where we build a mindset and lifestyle for lasting recovery from porn. My name's Jake Castleman, and I'm excited to dive in with you. Let's get started, my friend. What if your relationship to your spouse and the people around you is being hampered and sabotaged in a profound way that you are not aware of? And what if you had the power right now to change this? So many of us cannot stay present. We don't know how to work through relationship issues. We have a hard time being satisfied and happy, and we are stricken with a profound sense of anxiety, depression, and decreased focus and motivation. Divorce is at an all-time high and relationship satisfaction at an all-time low, but this satisfaction is not inevitable, my friend. It is not just genetic. Our current world is setting us up for it, and one of the primary reasons for it is hiding in plain sight, and we need to pay attention. We live in a dopamine nation, my friend, a place of instant gratification, constant entertainment, and a bombardment of our ability to be present and connected to real people and real life. I was recently a guest on the Therapy Brothers podcast with Tyler Patrick, where we discussed this. In the episode, he and I discuss how the brain interprets the world through the lens of relationship. We have a relationship to everything, not just people. A relationship to food, to nature, to hobbies and interests, and to technologies like smartphones and TV, and experiences like social media and porn. Here's the truth. Our relationship to technology is having a profound impact on our dopamine and the health of our brain. It is having a profound impact on our ability to feel present, happy, and connected to our wife and kids. In today's episode, Tyler and I break down how this works and what we can do about it. I start by going into deep detail on the 4 pillars of recovery, which outline the causes of pornography addiction and what we need to do to break free of porn. Then Tyler and I dig deep into the neurological and psychological impact of technologies like smartphones, TV, and porn. This is a topic I am extremely passionate for. Lately, I find myself reflecting on it more and more, and I feel it is one of the most important things we can be aware of in this day and age and start to change for our recovery, our relationships, and our sense of inner peace and happiness. If there is one episode I recommend you listen to all the way through, it is this one, my friend. I hope you find help and inspiration in it. If you want more help with porn addiction, like this episode, follow this podcast, and hit the notification bell. All right, let's get started. We've got a great topic that we're going to talk about today, and an even better guest that's going to come on and talk about that topic with me. So I had the privilege of meeting Jake Castleman just recently, a few months ago. We've had a couple of really good conversations. I was on his podcast as well, and we're privileged to have him here with us today. So Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tyler. It's a joy to be here, man. And what you and Brennan do on this show is fantastic. So it's just a blessing to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we're really happy to have you here too today. I think you're going to have a lot of goodness to give to the people who listen to this show. Tell us, just so that they know, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump into our conversation today.
Yeah. So I am a porn recovery coach. I am the founder and owner of No More Desire Porn Addiction Recovery. So I work with men one-on-one. I work with groups as well. I have an academy, just helping men build a recovery mindset and a recovery lifestyle. And we're going to talk about those 4 pillars today that I base that on. For me, I very much come from the place of pornography addiction and sex addiction as well, but pornography addiction specifically is what I'm working with men most often on, is a symptom, right? It's a symptom of other things within in a really broad spectrum, my mindset and my lifestyle, which encompasses a lot of things. And if I can get these things into good order, if I can build my life out in a way that brings joy and happiness to myself and those around me, then I will lose the desire for pornography over time. And I truly can get to the point in my life where cravings for porn can be very, very rare. It doesn't have to be something you're experiencing forever. And so that's what I help guys do.
I love it. I love the approach. This is something that Brandon and I really believe in too. For too long, too many people in the industry have focused mostly just on the porn being the problem and the need to stop. And in some ways, almost there's almost like a compulsion and even sometimes a shame around needing to stop porn versus the way that you approach it. We're going to get into your approach here in a minute, but it's more about building the right kind of a life, like a moving forward kind of an energy rather than a looking back and running from the demon kind of an energy.
Yes, and for me, my background, I was gonna say is somewhat unique. For some, it's not, but I I've been addicted to many different things, right, throughout my childhood, things that people wouldn't maybe necessarily consider addictions a lot of times, like video games and food. Then into my teenage years with, drugs and alcohol because my pornography addiction escalated. And in recovering from all these things, I've sat in recovery groups and they've been like, well, I'm working on recovering from pornography and then I'll do social media and then I'll overcome, my alcohol habit. And to me, it's there are differences for sure. There are some nuances, but it's all the same problems is what I came to understand. Overcoming alcohol, overcoming some of the substances that I was addicted to, overcoming the porn, overcoming the video game addiction, the addiction to TV, the addiction to food. These were all many of the same issues that I was dealing with.
So what you're saying is that the symptom was all of those things. That was the coping, but the underpinnings for all of those things kind of boiled down to the same kinds of places
Hmm.
for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's jump into you use a four pillar approach to recovery. Let's get the four pillars out there and then we can kind of step deeper into what we really wanted to get into, which was a discussion around technology. But talk a little bit about your four pillars.
Yeah. So first pillar is emotional. I'll just name them and then I'll go over some of the basics. Emotional is the first pillar. Neurological or the nervous system is the second pillar, and then biological, and then relational or relationships. And then for me, I'm Christian, as you are as well, and so there is a foundation underneath it is the spiritual, right? That is
Mhm.
underneath the four pillars, which is really a catalyst for growth in all these areas. So emotional, we need to learn how to regulate emotions. One of the things that I came to understand myself and then came to read about later and learn and then eventually teach people about is if I can't if I don't know how to relate to and respond to things like anger or sadness or fear or feelings of shame, I'm not good enough, inadequacy, then I will constantly go back into craving and into relapse. And so for me, as someone who carried a lot of social anxiety, a lot of perfectionism, and then kind of connections to ADD, ADHD types of symptomology, to depression, anxiety, all of these things come from similar things in a lot of ways. I needed to learn in part, what I needed to do is to learn how to respond to my emotions. How do I relate to these perfectionistic expectations, my fear and my feelings of shame and inadequacy? And how can I work through and respond with self-compassion to these emotions? And how do I do that for cravings as well? Because that's the reality. Those cravings are going to come up. How do I relate to them and respond to them? And in addition, so that's emotions. You look like you want to comment on those.
It's interesting. I was just thinking about cravings that so often the cravings themselves are tied to some kind of an emotional coming and going in our lives that then the craving is, hey, that's the solution. And
Right.
and I was thinking about that. Like there was some research that I heard that said they did some research on emotional intelligence or emotional quotient with people
Mm,
and found that people who start this was with marijuana, I believe, but people who started marijuana at whatever age they started smoking the marijuana was pretty closely associated to their emotional age in terms of their development. And so it makes sense that if we learn to cope with life and we find the thing that works the best, whatever those addictive things are, there isn't a need to continue to develop the emotional intelligence, the emotional skill. And So it would make sense that this would be a massive pillar in terms of recovery is learning how to develop the skills that maybe we needed to be developing all along, but we didn't need to because we had quick solutions with our addictions.
Yes, and this actually brings me to the second pillar. I love that you said that, Tyler, and to me, that study is it's like it's sad, it's eye-opening, but it's the reality, it's what I saw as well, and this will be unpopular for some people, it's an unpopular thing to say to some extent, but I started playing video games when I was 4 years old, and I feel like in a lot of ways, my emotional maturity was very much stunted from the hours I spent on video games per day, because that also is a massive dopamine spikes, and it's something that I went to constantly as a way of quote unquote, emotional regulation doesn't actually regulate you. It just gives you that escape, that out, much like porn. And so, for me, starting into that, and using as food as a coping mechanism. Speaking of the neurological pillar, these I talk about base and noble pleasures, right? So, base pleasures are things that are low effort with like a high or an intense emotional reward. In other words, you're getting a pretty big spike of dopamine, right? With no effort or low effort from your end, which is really, really key. Noble pleasures are anything that's requiring either effort or presence from my end, right? I have to be present and focus, or I need to be putting in some significant effort. And this yields a reward that's about equal to that effort. So, a really good example would be exercise, right? I go work out. The harder I work out, to a degree, the harder I work out, generally to a degree, the more of an emotional reward I'm going to experience from that. In other words, I come out of the gym, I'm like, I feel good, right? I feel satisfied. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I did something good for my body. That carries me throughout that day in a lot of ways from the endorphins and other chemicals that have been released. That is a really good example of a noble pleasure. Another one that's not so much high effort, but more presence would be I'm just laying on the ground with my infant and he's playing with toys and I'm just looking at him and smiling at him, just admiring his little features. He's so cute. And I'm just like, man, I can't believe this guy's my son. Like, it's so cool. That is a moment of a very simple pleasure that requires me to be present. If I'm on my phone, right, and I'm scrolling social media, I'm not going to experience that moment. It's not going to happen. And so these base pleasures, the more base pleasures we do, like social media and video games and TV as well, though it's not as intense as shorts or reels, scrolling endless reels or engaging with pornography. These this is going to train me more and more to want that quick and instant hit of dopamine. And it's going to make me less and less able to focus and feel motivated to engage with the noble pleasures that are either simple and present or that are higher effort because I have less dopamine available. And that gets into some deeper neuroscience and how that functions, but that's the general idea. So I teach guys more noble pleasures, minimize base pleasures. That's what we're going for over time.
In some way, you have to convince your clients that the pursuit of the noble pleasures, even though it takes more effort, is the actual more fulfilling one. And that's probably a hard sell sometimes when we live in a world that's so full of instant gratification, And I'm thinking too, just in the realm of sexuality, it's interesting because
Mm.
sex itself can be wrapped up in both either the base or the noble, according to what you just described, right?
Yes.
Like there's there's maybe that's something for the idea of fidelity inside of a relationship. I now attend to a complete relationship that includes some form of sexual expression, and brings a different kind of fulfillment than sitting down on the computer and looking at pornography and having the instant or base response that happens. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and I was just you're speaking to my heart, guy. I just listened to a podcast, the Huberman Lab, talking about this idea of dopamine, and
Mm.
he kind of used a different language than you, but said if you want a happy, healthy life, you need to earn your dopamine because
Mm.
anything that's not earned becomes highly addictive.
Yes, 100%. And like you're talking about with sex, right? Pornography requires, again, nothing from me, no investment, no effort, no relationship, no patience, no need to engage with someone when it comes to a sexual engagement with some risk and vulnerability, a lot of risk and vulnerability. Am I willing to put myself out there, and am I willing to risk, those awkward moments or someone else really seeing me, right?
Yeah.
And that's only in the bedroom, but on the grander scale of the relationship itself, I've invested so much of myself, especially when I have kids. Now I'm a teammate with this person, or at least I'm practicing or wanting to become a teammate with this person in raising those children and building something together. That takes so much investment. A lot of that is difficult and it's painful, and then you get those spurts of joy and, some daily experiences of, this togetherness, this is cool, I'm glad we have each other. But it requires me to invest so much and to be a person of safety, a person who's loving and giving in order to receive that back. And pornography requires none of that. Neither does, a one night stand or something that's, meaningless. It doesn't require any of that of me. And that's a real problem when it comes to my dopamine and other things.
Yeah, that's excellent. Interesting thoughts there that, anyone listening, it's like, what is your quick dopamine today that needs to maybe be put in check a little bit?
Mm, mhm,
So,
mhm.
yeah, go
Yes.
ahead, go
So
with your 3rd pillar there, the biological.
yeah, so biological is we could talk about genetics and things. For me, I like to focus on what do I have power to change, right? So I come with a genetic code. We could get into epigenetics and all sorts of things like that, but that's not really my forte. I think it's fascinating, but I talk about biologic from the standpoint of nutrition, exercise, and sleep, right? So how can I impact my biology to bring more balance and peace to my body so that I have less my body finds less of a reason to escape or to try to seek comfort through external means. If I'm taking really great care of my nutrition, my digestion is functioning better, my whole body is feeling better, my energy levels are better, therefore my motivation is going to be higher, my focus is going to be better, my ability to feel connected towards with those around me is going to be better. Everything's going to improve, right? And we could get into the microbiome and how that impacts, neurotransmitters and all sorts of things like that, which is fascinating. Um, in addition, exercise, of course, I think that's an easier one for us to grasp. The nutritional things are still coming more into the mainstream with the microbiome and understanding some of the deeper things of why nutrition really impacts mental health and addiction recovery. But exercise, a lot of us understand at this point, it makes you feel good, it helps you feel energized, you do something hard, right? And that builds your self-confidence. Your health is overall better, right? So that's great. And then sleep as well, right? Which sometimes we don't get enough. And that's kind of the reality, especially, for me, I've got a toddler and an infant. I don't get enough sleep most of the time, right? So there are things we can do, strategies we can follow to kind of mitigate that or deal with that lack of sleep, right? All sorts of things we can do. But in general, aiming to get more quality sleep if we can, right, is helpful for recovery as well.
Yeah. So you're basically saying that true it I'm picturing, like, the idea of driving a vehicle and doing proper maintenance on it. You're tuning up the vessel with which we live our lives, our bodies, on a regular basis with and those 3 things, if you look at all the research in all sorts of recovery, those 3 things always rise to the surface. Proper
Mm.
nutrition. Nutrition's probably behind the other 2 with, like, exercise and sleep, but sleep has been really prominent where I was listening to Dr. Anna Lemke,
Oh,
who's
so good.
she's awesome, the author
Yeah.
of Dopamine Nation, and she was talking about how some of the research is showing that if you had to choose sometimes, if you're sleep deprived, if you had to choose between even sleeping and even going to the gym on a particular day, sometimes sleep is more of a precursor to relapse than even your
Mhm.
exercise, which is amazing because exercise has always been right at the forefront. So
Mm.
just tuning up that vessel that we live with, and to me, another thought about that is more of an emotional component is by doing those things, not only are we helping to regulate our emotions and regulating our chemical bodies, but it feels like it's also maybe a physical way of doing affirmations for ourselves that we're worth taking
Mm.
care of ourselves when we pay attention to these 3 things.
100%. I was leading a group the other day, and a guy was saying how just the very fact of you know, he'd spent a lifetime doing so many things, just neglecting his body every day, and also not building self-trust. You say, "I should work out," or "I'm gonna work out today," and you just skip it, right? Again and again and again, and eventually you just have no self-trust, right? And you're losing. I would say we have a relationship with our own body, right? In that vein of what you're speaking about. Um, we need to build a good relationship with our body, take care of it and show, "Hey, I care about you and I'm glad I have you." And I think that that's a reciprocal relationship where then our body is able to return that to us again through energy, feeling good, feeling happy, being able to do the other things we want to do in life. I know for me, exercise has been huge in that I get to feel good and I get to do the other things in my life that I want to do. When I was a teenager and in my early 20s, it was like, I want to get big and buff and I want to look good and I'm going to get a six pack. So then I got married and I realized my wife doesn't care about that at all. And I realized the bigger purpose here is I just want to live the rest of my life and feel good doing it right. I want to be able to do the other things that I want to do and serve people and all that. And our bodies are we need healthy bodies to do that. A quick pause for just a couple minutes. There are a lot of men who feel discouraged by some of the recovery programs or therapy services out there. Maybe you are this way as well. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. You show up to a one on one session, someone asks you how your week went, you talk about your problems, maybe you talk about your relapses, and perhaps get a bit of advice or a listening ear, but you don't really feel like you are being given any sound tools to use throughout the week, throughout each day. This is not to say that these aren't well meaning professionals or that they don't do a lot of good for you, but to overcome porn, you need a sound structure. Many of the men in my program who've tried traditional therapy routes or other services find something different in this program. I provide a step by step structure that guides you in building habits and tools for your recovery. I provide you with 10 to 15-minute daily practices to build emotional resilience and work through cravings, an entire online course library that I've worked on for years with short lessons and applied exercises. In the program, you will learn practices derived from CBT, IFS, neuroscience, nutritional psychology, faith philosophy, and I help you apply each teaching to your everyday life through reflections, worksheets, and instructions. It's all about that application, guys. For guys who are looking for a higher level of support, I provide weekly one on one coaching to build personalized plans for your specific situation. I also instruct you in meditation practices in session to work through cravings and emotions and to train yourself to do this so that when they come up, you'll know what to do. Many men find this extremely helpful. In addition to all this, you don't do things alone. You are part of a private online community and meet with a weekly group to connect with other men who are on the same journey. It's a really awesome culture. At No More Desire, you're not just getting sober, you're designing a life that you love. So to learn more about the program, go to nomoredesire.com/coaching. All right, back to the show.
I love that, man. And it's interesting too, because these three things are the things that like people hear right now and they're like, yeah, 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 I've been told all of that. But they don't often give credit for how significant it is. And I think it's because we kind of slowly I'm thinking about my own situation here, Jake. So I'm in my own recovery myself, been in my own recovery for a couple of decades now. And for the longest time, I worked at UPS in the mornings from say like 10 at night till 2 or 3 in the morning for like 20 years. I quit like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I did it just to
Yeah.
kind of like I justify I need my medical benefits for my family. I'm a good man because I'm providing for them. And what I didn't realize is that I slowly over time cooked myself into being completely sleep deprived all the time. And I thought I was
Mm,
operating at 100%, going to work and working with clients and thinking through things. And then after quitting, within the first couple of months of getting a full night's rest again, it was like the discrepancy between my cognitive and emotional abilities was double or triple what it had been. And I didn't even know that I was operating at such a depleted state because I just slowly let those habits just cook me into a state of what I thought was normal, but it wasn't actually good health.
yes. Yes. It's so true. It's so true. And one of the things that I was thinking about, Tyler, on this topic of biology is just how much we do actually neglect nutrition because you're talking about how exercise and sleep come ahead. And I can't emphasize enough how much, coming off of processed sugar and making some other changes in my diet transformed my recovery. I didn't realize how many of the cravings that I experienced actually for pornography and for masturbation were stemming in part and sometimes entirely from what my diet was doing to my body. I'd eat desserts and or eat candy, and then the following hours I would experience, and from what I understand now, it's blood sugar, it's inflammation, and it's a few other effects on the body where that would then translate in my body to, I'm not feeling good. I feel out of balance, and it would translate into the cravings, right? Because my
Yeah,
body
yeah.
was seeking solace, seeking comfort, seeking homeostasis in just the most instant way that it could, and the way it knew from habits from a lifetime, right?
Yeah, yeah, great thought,
Um,
man.
yeah.
Sorry, I keep derailing us. Let's go
Not at all.
the last pillar here was relational, right?
Yes, and I don't think it's derailing at all. I love it.
Okay.
So relationships, and this will actually segue us really nicely into the topic itself with our relationship to technology. So when it comes to relationships, we all know the phrase. Well, maybe we don't all know, but or we should know the phrase of the opposite of addiction is connection, right? And I think in the episode we did together, you may have even mentioned that line, and it's so true. One of the things that I think we really miss these days, and that we're all fish swimming in water, not realizing what's happening is we are constantly inundated with technology, with social media, our smartphone that's constantly locked to us, right? That we're always scrolling on, we're checking notifications, even if it's things that are productive, like my calendar and my text messages and my Gmail and or my, email, all that stuff. We are constantly checking out of and getting disconnected from the people around us, from God, from ourselves, from our life, from presence because of technology, right? And then we have TV and we have video games. We have all these constant sources of entertainment and these constant sources of distraction. And I talk about relationship replacement, which is these technologies are replacing my bandwidth and my capacity to connect with real human beings. And I'm not the first person to say this. I actually learned this from Dr. Anna Lemke that you were talking about. She probably talks about this in her book, and I don't know it, but she was on a podcast episode, and she said our brain works in relationships, right? Is one really, really great way to see it. I have a relationship to people, but I have a relationship to God. I also have a relationship to myself, to emotions, to nature, to hobbies, to technology, right? To sports, whatever it is, you name it, I have a relationship to it, right? And if I have this relationship constantly ongoing with technology, like I'm spending 3 hours on social media a day, well, that's depleting so much of my ability to actually connect with real human beings. And when it comes to pornography, that only gets to such a more exaggerated extent, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting, just thinking about relationships in general, and I wanna come into this relationship with technology. But, you hear the classic, like, trigger things, bored, lonely, hungry, angry, stressed, tired. Those are the biggest triggers that people have. But I'll tell you what, like, in my practice over the years, if I have, say, let's say a young man who's in a relationship with a girl, and he comes into group one week and he's like, "Hey, we just broke up." Almost 100% of the time, the following week, he'll come back to group and be like, "Hey, guys, I don't know what happened, but I had a relapse." And it's like, well, I know exactly what happened. That
Right. It's
that
no mystery.
connection is
Yeah.
so, so important with us in relationships, and especially when it comes to, like, our main sort of romantic or supportive relationships. When there's stress and tension there, it's really hard to manage the emotions that are tied to all of that because of what connection really means to us.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I
Yes.
I I think that's so, so important, and, yeah, I can totally see the effects of that. And now you add in what you're talking about.
Yes.
I was at the, tire place and getting my oil changed the other day, and I walked in and I sat down and I thought to myself, "I'm just gonna do an experiment and see how many people I can talk to today." So I'm sitting in this waiting room. There's like 6 people in the waiting room, and right when I sit down, every single person grabs their phone and is, like, looking straight down at their phone and just, like, scrolling, you know? And I'm like, "That's what I wanna do too. I just wanna grab
Right.
my phone and, like, scroll because that's the
Yes.
easiest, most comfortable, least awkward thing to do." And instead, I sit down
Yes.
next to this dude, and he's scrolling. I'm like, "Hey, how's it going today?" And he looks at me like,
Like,
"Who are
what in the
you?" Like,
world?
"Who are you? What are you doing?" You know? I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's a beautiful day outside, just getting the oil changed. I hate doing this," you know, to whatever I'm talking to him for. And he
Right.
just kinda, like, gives me the short answers, and then he kinda gets back on his phone and, like,
Back on his phone.
turns. So I
Right.
look at the kid next
Back
to me, and I do the same thing, like, 3 times. It's like,
right. And he's like,
nobody wants to
back
connect.
to my main relationship. He's like, "I'm getting back to this main relationship here. Like, what are you doing talking to me? What is this is weird. Why would you speak to me? People don't do this, right?"
Yeah, that to get the
Mhm.
response of, like, "You're the weird one because you started a conversation with me," that says something
Yes.
about, I think, just the overall world that we're living in now, and I'm guilty of it too myself, Jake.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
sometimes I get into a public place, and my anxiety about having to speak to somebody is the first thing that's like, "Hurry and get on your phone and look busy," you know, like,
Right.
because it takes
Yes.
energy, and it's stressful sometimes just
It's
to
our
have that connection.
it's our shield, right? And the more I engage with that shield and I opt out of the natural discomfort of life and the discomfort of engaging with a stranger or another human being, the harder and harder and harder it becomes to do that. And I would say the less joy that I experience as a whole, right? And actually feeling connected to people. For me, I've been pursuing this harder than I ever have in my whole life because I've realized and as I've learned more about and become more serious about this technology relationship. For me, I actually tried getting a dumb phone, a flip phone, fairly recently because I was like, "I'm gonna replace my smartphone. It's gonna be awesome." I am sorry to say that that dumb phone, the reception on it was absolutely atrocious. It was such a poor piece of technology. Um, so it didn't work out the way that I wanted to. However, I've built in a system and I'm practicing the system of I have no notifications pop up on my smartphone other than reminders that need to be on there, right? From the calendar, right? For certain things that I need. But other than those reminders that I have set up electronically, which I may make physical at some point, I don't know, I'm still working this out. But I have a physical planner that I'm slowly trying to transition over to, right? And writing things in there and keeping that. It's a little pocket planner and I have a physical watch because the thing that we don't realize and that I've gotten so annoyed with is if I'm checking the time on my phone, what's there? Notifications.
Everything.
It right, all those notifications, including for me personally, like even the calendar notifications and stuff, it's yet another way to distract myself from life, to come out of the present, out of what I'm doing, and it breaks my ability to focus and to be here and actually to accomplish and create. We think we're being so productive, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to check my notifications and I'm going to do this and that. And we're getting little dopamine hits, right? If we're someone who's more productive on our phone, let alone the social media stuff that pulls up, right? And we might hit that little short that or that whatever pops up, right? And then we're there for, let's say, 10 minutes or longer. And then we're back to reality. Well, the more I do that throughout the day, the more of my focus and presence is broken, the less ability I actually have to connect with the people around me. And so I've gotten a watch because I'm like, if I want to check the time, I can check it on here. If I want to write things down in my planner, I can do it in a physical planner, right? Can I still have a few things in the phone, right? Like birthdays, I'm like, okay, I have to go through and like write down everyone's birthday in my whole calendar for the whole year. I still haven't made that shift, right? And I'm just like, will I? I don't know. I might just keep that electronic, right? But anyway, um, so having a watch, having a physical planner, um, I'm someone, I love to read scripture, right? So my wife and I over the weekend went and bought physical scriptures. I haven't used physical scriptures in years, right? I've done them through the app, right? The app on my phone. And so we're making this shift and my wife has been doing it as well. And I can't say enough about what this has done for us. I take my smartphone and I stick it in my office drawer and it stays there
pretty much exclusively these days, unless we're going somewhere and then I need to take it with me for phone calls, right? But I have all text messages, all that stuff just turned off. And then I check those, in the morning or the evening. And this is the weird things. Like when I say that to people, they're like, wait, so you mean like if someone texts you, like you won't get back to them for like until the night? Right. And it's, well, yeah. Why is that so weird for us? Why is that so weird for us that we can't wait, 24 hours for someone to get back to a text that we think that people need to respond within, 30 minutes or that we need to. We all feel this pressure of I need to respond immediately. I don't need to. During a workday, I have Google Messages up on my right. I'll have it up on my screen, right, so that I can receive those messages when I need to, right, and respond to clients. But other than that, I can if it's a text, I can get back to someone later. And that it's helped me so much in feeling more present in my life, more focused in my life. So many of the issues that I've had with procrastination, um, and also, uh, I'm feeling more patience in my life as well. I can't say enough about the dividends that it pays, and I think we're all living in this and swimming in it. We just have no clue how much this is impacting our happiness levels and our susceptibility to escape and seeking out comfort through pornography and other means.
I Man, as you're talking, I'm thinking of my own situation, and another part of this that's cropping up for me is my relationship with anxiety. And, I made some changes myself a couple of years ago, similar to yours, maybe a little bit different, but I took all of my social media completely off my phone. I took all gaming off of my phone, and I did the same thing you did where I silenced all of my,
Patience,
notifications.
yeah. Mhm.
And when I did that, there was actually a spike in my anxiety un
Oh, yeah.
until afterwards, and now it's like my overall level of anxiety is way better now than it used to be, where I'm not so worried about, like you said, I think there's like a slow it's in a weird way, it's almost like a slower pace of life while still being inside the fast world,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there's almost like a level of peace to it that I'm finding that I thought wasn't going to happen when I first did it. And,
Mhm.
yeah, overall mental and emotional health has improved. I think I've probably hurt some relationships a little bit, not meaning to, by not being as responsive as I could be or as I used to be. But I feel way more, you used the word earlier, you used the word presence. I feel personally more present. I feel less triggered,
Mhm. Mhm.
in terms of my old ways of coping. And I do think I feel more connected with people, even though I might not respond instantly to them. Um,
Right.
so it makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, there's 2 questions going through my mind. The first one, maybe let's do the first question first and then come back to the second question. But the topic of the podcast here for just the next few minutes, let's hit that. Like, besides the idea of presence, how
Mm.
does my relationship with technology affect my overall recovery? What else would you say is connected to this idea of our relationship with technology to our overall recovery?
I think, a couple of things on that, Tyler. One is what is my relationship to gratification, right? So, do I expect to be instantly gratified? And I think a vast majority of us do, right? To varying degrees these
That's the world we
days.
live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a world of instant gratification. Or am I able to experience delayed gratification? We Because we've sought out, convenience, right, and speed, so these are some of our primary objectives when it comes to technology, which there's been a lot of advancements that have been positive for humanity, but I think when it comes to technology, maybe it's pessimistic to say, but I think a vast majority when it comes to screens, a vast majority of what's happened with screen technology has been very, very negative for us. I think we, again, if we think in relationships, that technology is a relationship, well, when I get on social media and there's an interpretation in my mind that I'm connecting with people, right? Because my subconscious doesn't differentiate, right? If I'm reading people's posts and I'm seeing what's happening in their family, or I'm watching entertaining shorts, or seeing a conversation, whatever it is, some things are going to be higher stimulation and higher kind of gratification, and others are going to be lower depending on what I'm engaging with. But I expect that my brain comes to expect, okay, when I am engaging with other human beings, they give me everything I want and they expect nothing back, right? Or I have this ability to just have this experience that I like and enjoy, and if something's boring, I'll just move on, right? Or if something's not what I like, I'll just go somewhere else. Then I believe that belief system follows me in my day-to-day life with real human beings. It can't help but follow me of, well, now I feel less patient with other people, right? When they're doing things I don't like. Or now when my spouse does something that I'm just like, I can't, oh my gosh, 10 years of this, I can't stand the way they peel their orange. It drives me nuts, right? Or whatever the thing is. It's not a thing for me, but I heard someone say that once. I was like, that's weird. But we all have things, right? For me, it'd be like, why don't you just pick up your dang towel from the floor, right? You left your soggy towel on the floor again, right? And so if I have this belief inside of like, well, when I engage with people, they shouldn't do things that I don't like, right? Because technology has taught me this, right? Social media and other pieces of technology have taught me this, and I really want to. Again, it can be hard to think of this, but again, if I have an overall relationship to TV, I sit down, I turn on the TV, and it feeds me entertainment. It stimulates me and it expects nothing back. So I carry some of that mentality into my relationship. Not all of it, right? I'm not saying if you ever watch TV, then you don't give anything to anyone, right? But it influences me. And so now I'm carrying that in. And I think one of the things I've really realized in my life and that I think was more common for people to understand, 100 years ago was, yeah, like sometimes people do things that you don't like and it's not fun. And that's life. Like that is part of marriage. And you need to learn how to just deal with that or how to talk about and work that out. Right. And I think for us these days, we expect instant gratifications and for things to be what I want and how I want it right now. And that's just not how life works, you know?
It fuels that idea though in our lives that we can have that, and then maybe you're saying that crosses over a little bit into other parts of life, the inconveniences. Like, it's funny, we were watching a World Cup game last night with me and my daughter, and we happened to be watching it live, which we never watch anything live because we like to cut out the transaction of having to watch ads in order to watch our media, right? So
Right.
we were
Totally.
watching we're watching it live and the first ad pops on and my daughter's like, "Hey dad, fast forward this." And I'm like, "We're live." And she's like, "I don't even wanna watch this, dad." Like, I'm like, "It's gonna be 90 seconds and then they're gonna go back for another like 10 minutes. Like, it's gonna be okay." She's like, It's not even worth it, dad." I'm like 90
Okay.
seconds so that we can watch, like, the World Cup for free? Like, come on.
Yes. I actually, and I apologize if I'm cutting off something else you're saying, but this is really bringing this up for me. AI is a massive exaggeration of this. I don't think we can even anticipate what it's going to lead to when it comes to kind of this general topic. Um, and I'm saying this from personal experience. When AI popped up, I don't know how long it's been now. It all blends together. But for me, I started using it to write, different content, right? And it blew my mind as it blew everybody's mind that I could feed it a prompt and it could just and just build this massive piece of content. I'm like, oh my gosh, it used to take me 2 hours to write a blog article like this, and now this just creates it for me. What in the world? And it slowly over time, I found myself getting less and less and less patient with creating my own content. And I was still doing podcast episodes and all that, but I was leaning more into AI. And I think so many people are doing this now. And I realized I started to lose my ability as a writer and my ability as a content producer. And to really, and I would say on a spiritual level, to pay attention to what the spirit is sharing with me and how that's working through me to write a piece of content. And that can't happen if I'm having a robot write it for me. And I've really come to that personal understanding for me and having this push in my life. I'm going to write my own content, my own emails, my own blog articles, my own podcast episodes. Right. And a lot of people be like, well, why are you going to do that? Like you're not going to keep up with everybody else.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right. You're not going to keep up. And because it showed me all those things, and another thing I experienced was just overall patience in life and my expectations of the people around me, my children is what I think of in particular. Why are you not doing what I want you to do, right?
Yeah.
Why are you not instantly gratifying this? Because AI just it does it like that, exact and then it asks you, "Would you also like me to create this for you, and this for you, and this for you?" And it'll do it all for we don't even we can opt out of thinking, and that's it just makes us so much more prone towards desiring that instant gratification, right? And that will turn us back to porn, right? If that's one of our drugs of choice.
Yeah, I love where you're going, and what you just said there kind of ties back into your pillars where you're consciously choosing, at least in certain areas of your life, you're instead of the expediency and instead of like the ability to keep up with content, you're choosing certain parts of your life to cultivate that emotional intelligence, that ability to sit with being patient, the need to be creative, the need to wrestle, the need to listen spiritually,
Mm,
all of those things, you have to make a conscious choice because otherwise the autopilot of where things are going. I'm not saying technology is a bad thing. Technology can actually help with a lot of this stuff too when it's done
totally.
intentionally.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and
but you're
that's not to say I don't use AI, right? I
yeah,
just need
right.
to consciously choose where am I going to create, right, on my own and with the spirit, right? Where's that
Right.
gonna happen? I need to
And
make
I
that happen.
think that's another big piece of recovery is the conscious choice where you're saying, if I'm going to continue to improve myself as a overall person, there's going to be some areas where I might actually choose a little bit of a difficult path for the sake of the exercise emotionally, spiritually, relationally, because it's in my better interest to wrestle with those things, even though I might use those other things in other parts of my life, because
Mhm.
I need to do that for myself as an entire human being.
Mm,
Right.
yes,
Yeah. Really
exactly.
good, man. Yeah. Man, what a great discussion here. We're getting a little close on time. So, two questions for you. The first one is just, when you're working with your clients and we're talking about this relationship idea with technology, I'm just thinking my own relationship with technology, if my relationship with technology looked the same way as it does with my relationship with my friends and my family, I'd be in big trouble.
Right.
Like it's a
You and me
it's
both.
it's if I'm looking at it from a relational lens, I've got a lot of inventorying for myself to do, because I never give
Um,
anything back to technology. I only take, and then I feel entitled all the time.
sure, I get
And
that.
and then I
I get
just
that.
feel inept at it too, so
Right.
my own shame as well, I guess. So, but the 2 questions are this: with when you're approaching this with your clients, what kinds of things do you find people doing besides the things you've already mentioned for yourself that help them in this idea of relationship with technology? And then secondly, just let everybody know, what's the best way for them to find you or connect with you as well.
Yeah, 100%. So I think one of the things that comes to mind for me, especially as someone who dealt with, anxiety and a lot of different mental health issues, right, and still dealing with that perfectionism and different things on varying degrees, right, but much much better than it used to be for me. I needed to create systems and strategies, right, and also to taper down on things or wean off or slowly um, and we all have to do this, right? When it comes to habits, slowly um, increasing good habits, decreasing the bad habits or the harmful habits, right? So if you want to change, let's say you're watching social media 3 hours a day, or I have a client that's doing that, which many of my clients do that, right? Then we're going to need to start to build in systems. So can I begin to become conscious of that first off? And the the reasons that I don't wanna do that, how that's impacting my recovery and my happiness, that's really important to know, right? And to start to build that motivation. But then can I create a system where maybe let's decrease from 3 hours a day to like 2.5 hours a day, right? And let's start working on that. And what am I gonna replace that half hour with, right? And that's part of that system. So can I go for a walk? Can I spend some time in meditation? Can I start reading a fictional book that I like? Can I call, a friend on occasion, or I can spend some one-on-one time with my spouse, right? What is a noble pleasure that you can replace some of that base pleasure time with? And then can you increase that more and more over time, the other things you're doing, so you're enjoying doing those things, which will not be as stimulating and as exciting in the beginning, but eventually they become more enjoyable. They become the go-to, right? Rather than the base pleasure. So just being self-compassionate, being really realistic about it's not all or nothing. That all or nothing mentality often gets people, it causes them to fail in their efforts. And if I'm going to stop something, I need to start something else, right? So decide what that is that you're going to start increasing. And just making a plan, like just sitting down, whether it be with a coach or a therapist or on your own or a friend, right? Sit down and make a plan. What does that look like? And in addition to systems, and I touched on this, I would say motivations are very important too. Get the what and the why. Why do I want to change this and what's it going to do for me?
I love the why part. I think that's left out a lot of times, and when you start to have that why, then it's easier to choose the discomfort of the more healthy, less appealing instant option. And
Mhm.
yeah, so yeah, we're really, really good, man. Thanks so much
Yeah.
for what you brought today, the energy you brought. I think you got some really good ideas here, and hopefully our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of this. I think they will. Yeah, just share how people can find you, connect with you.
Yeah, 100%. So if you go to nomordesire.com, everything is found there. The best place to go, nomordesire.com/tools. I have a free workshop. I have a free ebook. You can find links to my coaching, one-on-one and group coaching. I have some courses there. You can become a member of the free community. Really cool culture there. So nomordesire.com/tools is the best place to go.
Awesome, man. You're the man, Jake. Thank you, Jake, for your time today and for the goodness you brought to the world and the good you're doing in this world. So, to our listeners, if you enjoyed what you got, one way, obviously, you can go and check out Jake's stuff. One way you can also help us and help Jake at the same time is leave a review and mention what you learned, mention what
Mm.
you appreciated. We'd love to read those on air again about the things that Jake brought. So, thank you for being here with us. Thank you to our listeners for being part of our community. We love connecting with you. And until next time, keep on keeping on.
Thanks for listening to No More Desire. It's a genuine blessing for me to do the work that I do, and I wouldn't be able to do it without you, my listeners, so thank you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor. Follow this podcast, hit the notification bell, and shoot me a rating. The more people who do this, the more men this podcast will reach. So take a few minutes of your time and hit those buttons. And if you want to take your sobriety to the next level, check out my free workshop, The 8 Keys to Lose Your Desire for Porn, or my free ebook, The 10 Tools to Conquer Cravings. These are specialized pieces of content that will give you practical exercises and applied solutions to overcome porn addiction. And you can find them at nomordesire.com. As a listener of the No More Desire podcast, you are part of a worldwide movement of men who are breaking free of porn to live more impactful, meaningful, and selfless lives. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep building that recovery mindset and lifestyle. God bless. Everything expressed on the No More Desire podcast are the opinions of the host and participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of a qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.